You sell that, to iDefense anonymously, you get 40K. That's a pretty good deal. So this kind of things actually incentivize people to actually put vulnerabilities in the software that were not supposed to be there, right? The other thing is we don't know who is going to actually subscribe to the services from companies such as iDefense and Tipping Point. In other words, in theory, the companies who are subscribing to those systems are actually companies who want to defend themselves ahead of time and want to know about vulnerabilities. But it could also be the Russian mafia, right? They just subscribe to the service. They know ahead of time there is a vulnerability. And what they're going to do, they're going to exploit the next person. In addition to that, the fact that iDefense and Tipping Point have these vulnerabilities also have incentives in order to actually leak the information. Because whenever they leak, there's panic. If people panic, they will say, well, what would be the solution for that? Oh, I should subscribe to this service because I'm going to know about the vulnerabilities ahead of time. So there's a lot of problems that, although the idea is great, it could create because we're throwing money in the equation. The last part of the talk is about government and what government can do about the things that we just discussed. First thing is that it's really hard to create laws. And whenever you create laws and they're not good, they're going to create incentives that you don't want to have. The first one is a couple countries actually look at hacking tools. And they pretty much had the same approach as guns, right? Hacking tools are bad things, and guns are bad things in the hands of wrong people. So let's prevent everybody from having hacking tools, right? There's not a good solution. And unlike guns, I can only use a gun to somebody that I can actually, see who is not too far away from me. A hacking tool I can use from another country, right? And still shoot the person in the country I want to shoot, my target country. So that really means that once a law is enacted that ban hacking tools, the people in this country is actually in trouble because they have no defense. And the ones who are in this country actually can point their guns and actually hack the other side. So there's a problem, although the idea was interesting of basing on something that you already did, and some countries had some success. It doesn't really work. Cutting internet access, which is the other thing that I talked before, somebody is actually spreading virus on the internet, let's just cut access. The problem we have with that is, how do you know somebody is actually spreading a virus? Well, if you want to know, you have to monitor the personal network. So you're trying to solve one problem here. You just create another problem, which is now all the privacy that you have may be gone, right? True, a lot of the monitoring is going to be done by a machine most of the time. But, who is telling you that it's going to be all the time and nobody is actually going to, poke around your network to actually see what's going on? Certifications is another interesting solution. And it's an interesting solution because it costs a lot of money for vendors to actually do software. So governments could actually help. They could do code reviews for the vendors. So in other words, the US government could come and say, hey, Microsoft, we're going to actually code review your software for you. And if we like your software, we're going to buy it and let you know about all the vulnerabilities in your software so you can fix. Sounds like a nice thing to do. However, how would the Chinese government feel about that if they knew that if they knew the US government is reviewing Microsoft software, right? It's pretty bad, right? You're actually giving more rights to a country just because they have more money. Some other countries might not have enough money to actually do this kind of reviews. One thing I really like is using the buying power of a government institution, which is really large, in order to help with enforcing standard. The FDCC is a great example. They just came and said to all the vendors of firewalls, we're going to use our firewall as long as it's compliant with our standard. They gave the standard, and I'll tell you, all the vendors actually tried to implement the standard just because they want that account. They want that account badly. right? So it's just a great way to actually exercise this kind of, power of the government in order to do the right thing without forcing people to do, whatever is needed. In the beginning, I said that vulnerabilities are just like pollution. And one of the things that people try to do is let's treat like pollution and make quotas, right? The problem with that is this might work well for big companies, but what about the small players? The startups, the people who are trying to get software out. Everyone knows that the version 1.0 of a product is always buggy, right? If we try to put quotas in those small players, what's going to happen is we're going to kill them, right? They're going to have more vulnerabilities. It's just a fact, right? There's like less testing in version 1 than version 15 of a product. So it's also an idea that doesn't work, right? Sometimes the law is kind of written in really weird ways. One of the things that happened is USC against Eric McCarthy. And basically, this was a case of a guy who actually found a SQL injection in the USC, University of Southern California website. And he looked at 7 different records. And after looking at those records, he actually went to Security Focus and said, hey, I found a SQL injection in their site. Because of laws in California, California had to tell every single user of that website, which is pretty much the entire student body in the university, that the site has been hacked. That cost a lot, so what they did, they actually made a lawsuit against this guy. He did the right thing. He actually went and did responsible disclosure, but he was still in court because of that, because the university had such a terrible loss of money. They have to get it from other place somehow. So conclusions. First thing is that this is not a technical problem. Most of the largest part of this problem is actually rooted in economics. Whenever you as a user is buying software and making a decision, you're actually voting with your money which software you want to use, and you might be getting the less secure software, right? The industry seems to be moving in the right direction. We're trying to do the right thing as an industry, but there's still long ways to go. And we see the big players trying to do things, but it's not a movement that I can actually tell you all the companies are actually doing. It's really hard for the government to understand the problem, and we really have a hard time to understand what actually software is, right? So with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation and open up for questions. Thanks so much. Hmm?